Hello, class, and welcome to this mini lecture on the elements of risk, threats, vulnerabilities, and business impact. The purpose of this lecture is to help students understand these concepts, which seem to be difficult at first, but are very important for understanding risk management. So risk is composed of threats, vulnerabilities, and business impact. Threats times vulnerabilities times business impact equals risk. Threats, as we're going to see as we go through this, is the who. And when we say who, we don't just mean humans, but we mean any kind of man-made or natural occurrence that can use vulnerabilities to cause damage to the business. So threats are who, vulnerabilities are the how. While threats are the who, vulnerabilities are the how. How can a threat achieve its objectives? What can it use? So a threat will use a specific threat agent depending on the vulnerabilities that are present in a network or system to achieve their goals. And once those goals are achieved, once the final goals are achieved, then business impact occurs. As we'll see later on, an attacker may have to go through 4 or 5 vulnerabilities to reach the final objective. So a threat is any human, technical, or natural entity that can cause business interruption, destroy lack of customer and investor confidence, or in any other way impact an organization through unauthorized access to systems, networks, or data. To put this simply, a threat is anything that wants to get at your data or anything that can damage your systems, your facilities, or your data. 3 different kinds are shown here, but they're certainly not limited to these, are cyber criminals, roving malware, which is applications that have been roving around the internet since the internet's inception, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, etc. A threat agent is any tool or method employed by a threat to achieve attack objectives. Examples include network scanners, malware, or social engineering. Whatever a threat is going to use to take advantage of a vulnerability, that is the threat agent. A vulnerability is simply any weakness a threat can leverage to achieve one or more attack objectives. Remember, there could be multiple objectives or multiple things that an attacker must do to reach the final target. At each point along the path to the final target, there could be security devices, switches, etc. So the attacker has to figure out what vulnerabilities exist in each one of those steps and have the proper threat agents or the proper tools and techniques to exploit those vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities include missing patches, misconfigured network or system devices or software, and poor coding practices. Business impact is the actual risk. When we talk about business impact, we're talking about what happens to the business. And so business impact is the damage to the business caused when the threat successfully achieves its objectives. So these business impact can be loss of business, short term, loss of business long term, lack of shareholder or customer confidence. It could be a number of things. And the note here reiterates what I've already said. While natural events don't actually have conscious objectives, we will assume, for the purposes of this lecture, that they plan to cause as much damage as possible given their individual characteristics. So a hurricane coming through an area where you have a facility is going to do as much damage as it can based on its wind speeds, the amount of rain that it dumps, etc. So in this particular graphic, we're going to step through the process very quickly. And this is not the complete process as provided by the ethical hacker framework, but this is enough to demonstrate the relationships between threats, threat agents, vulnerabilities, and business impact. The first thing that an attacker, and we're going to go at this from a human perspective, the first thing an attacker is going to do is to scan your network and get as much information about your organization as possible. During this period, the attacker is going to identify targets and potential vulnerabilities. Once these are detected, then the attacker determines what methods and tools to use to exploit those vulnerabilities. Along the attack path, as we've said before, there can be multiple steps that the attacker has to go through, multiple devices that the attacker must go through to reach the final target. So this particular example here can be cyclical. The threat doesn't change, but the threat agent and vulnerability can change as the attacker steps through or steps across the attack path towards the target. So a threat uses a threat agent to exploit identified vulnerabilities to achieve either intermediate or final attack objectives. So again, the threat is the who, vulnerability is the how, the threat and the threat agent of vulnerability is the how, and the actions taken or the objectives reached by the attacker will have some business impact. So that's how these relate to each other. If you still have questions, be sure to ask them in the classroom. It is very important that you understand these concepts.